It all started with a stack of bills and a ringing phone. That's how most of my disasters seem to begin. I was sitting at my rickety kitchen table, the kind you get from a secondhand store and always swear you'll replace. The weak afternoon light was catching the dust motes dancing in the air, and each one felt like a tiny, mocking particle of my own failure. The envelopes were piled up like a losing hand of cards. The landlord's final notice, a screaming red utility bill, the student loan statement that felt more like a life sentence. I was doing the math, the same desperate arithmetic I'd been doing for weeks, trying to stretch a paycheck that was already translucent. It just wasn't working. I was big years old, working a dead-end data entry job that paid just enough to make you think you could survive, but never enough to actually live. I felt adrift, a ghost in my own life, just going through the motions. That's when my phone buzzed, skittering across the tabletop and vibrating against the landlord's letterhead. It was Ethan. I almost didn't answer. Ethan was my best friend, my brother in everything but blood since we were 5 years old. But I wasn't in the mood for his usual cheerful energy. It would only highlight the grayness of my own world. But he was persistent. The phone buzzed again, and a video call request popped up. I sighed, running a hand through my messy brown hair, and tapped the screen. His face filled the display, and my stomach immediately clenched. He wasn't smiling. Ethan was always smiling. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a kind of panic I hadn't seen since he crashed his dad's car in high school. Liam, thank God. Listen, man, I am in deep, like bottom of the ocean deep. What's wrong? I asked, my own problems momentarily forgotten. Are you okay? Did something happen? I need a favor, he said, his voice a frantic whisper. A huge favor. My life, my actual, literal life, might depend on this. Okay, maybe not my life, but my entire family's perception of me, which is basically the same thing. Ethan, slow down. What are you talking about? He took a deep breath, looking over his shoulder as if his family might burst into the room at any second. Okay, so you know my grandma, right? Grandma Rose. She's turning 80 this weekend. Yeah, I know. You've been talking about this party for months. Right, the party. Well, she's not doing so great. Liam, her heart's acting up. The doctors are saying, well, they're saying we should make this birthday really special. It might be her last big one. His voice cracked a little on the last words. I felt a pang of sympathy. I'd always loved his grandma. She was the kind of old lady who'd slip you $20 and tell you not to tell your parents. I'm so sorry to hear that. Man, anything you need, I'm here. He latched onto that. Anything you swear. Within reason, I said, a little cautiously. Okay, here's the thing. He leaned in so close to his camera that his face distorted. For the last 6 months, I've been telling my family about my girlfriend. I blinked. You have a girlfriend since when you haven't mentioned anyone? That's because she doesn't exist, he shouted, his eyes wild. I made her up. I just stared at him, completely lost. You? What? Why would you do that? Because Grandma Rose is obsessed with me settling down every time I talk to her. It's Ethan. When are you going to find a nice girl? I want to see you happy before I go. And one day, I was just tired of it. And she sounded so sad, so I invented Lily. I told them I met this amazing girl named Lily, that she's sweet and a little shy and that I'm crazy about her. And it made Grandma so happy. Liam, you should have heard her. She lit up. So I kept it going. Little details here and there. Now my whole family thinks Lily is the love of my life. I was starting to see where this was going, and it felt like the floor was tilting beneath my feet. Oh no, Ethan, don't. They expect to meet her at the party this weekend. They're all flying in. My aunts, my cousins, everyone. Grandma's big wish for her 80th birthday is to finally meet the girl who stole her grandson's heart. He looked absolutely miserable. If Lily doesn't show up, they'll think I'm a liar. It'll break my grandma's heart. I can't do that to her. Liam, I can't. My own heart was starting to pound. A sick, nervous rhythm. So hire an actress. I don't know. Find someone on a website. I tried. It's too last minute and I can't trust a stranger with this. They wouldn't know how to act. They wouldn't understand the dynamic. It has to be someone I trust completely. Someone who gets me. His eyes pleaded with me through the screen. It has to be you, Liam. The air left my lungs in a rush. I think I actually choked. Are you insane me, Ethan? Look at me, I'm a guy. How in the hell could I possibly pretend to be your girlfriend? The idea was so absurd, so completely out of the realm of possibility, that I started to laugh. It was a hysterical, desperate sound. We can make it work. You've got, delicate features. You're not super muscular. We could get a wig, some makeup, a dress. A dress, I practically squeaked. No, absolutely not. The answer is no. N-O. I'm sorry about your grandma, I really am. But this is crazy, I can't do it. I was shaking my head, my mind reeling. Me, Liam, in a dress. It was a joke. It had to be. But Ethan wasn't laughing. He was desperate. Please, man, think about it. Our friendship. 20 years. Remember when I took the blame for you breaking Mr. Henderson's window with that baseball? Remember when I drove 3 hours in the middle of the night to pick you up when your car broke down in the middle of nowhere? I have never, ever asked you for anything this big. He was right. Our friendship was a long ledger of favors, and the balance was heavily in his favor. I was the quiet, introverted one. He was the one who always pulled me into adventures, who stood up for me, who made sure I didn't just fade into the background. But this was a different league. I can't, I whispered, looking down at the bills on my table. They seemed to mock me. Then Ethan played his trump card. He must have seen the despair on my face. Or maybe he just knew me that well. I'll pay you, he said quietly. I know things are tight for you right now. I'll cover your rent for 6 months. My head snapped up. 6 months. That was life-changing. That was breathing room. That was the crushing weight on my chest suddenly being lifted. The number he was offering was more money than I'd seen in my bank account at one time. Ever. It was a lifeline. A ridiculous, humiliating, insane lifeline. It's just for one night, he pressed. Sensing my hesitation, you show up, you smile, you be shy, Lily, for a few hours. You don't even have to talk much. I told him she's quiet. We can leave early, please, Liam. It'll be our secret. Just a crazy story to tell when we're old and gray. Just this once. I stared at the pile of bills. The red ink on the final notice seemed to glow. I thought about the constant, grinding anxiety that was my life. I thought about the relief, the sheer, incredible relief of not having to worry about rent for half a year. Then I thought about putting on a dress, makeup, a wig, the humiliation, the absurdity. But then, a strange thought flickered through my mind. It wasn't just about the money. For years, I'd felt invisible. Liam, the quiet guy, the reliable friend, the background character, no one ever really looked at me. For one night, I'd be someone else, someone everyone was excited to meet. The thought was terrifying, but it also held a tiny, bizarre spark of something else, something I couldn't name. I took a long, shaky breath and looked back at my best friend's desperate face on the screen. Okay, I heard myself say, the word feeling foreign in my own mouth. Fine, I'll do it. The relief that washed over Ethan's face was staggering. He looked like he was about to cry. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you, Liam. You won't regret this. I wasn't so sure. Just one thing, I said, my voice hardening a little. This is the one and only time, and I want the money in cash. The next 2 days were a blur of nervous energy. Ethan, true to his word, showed up at my apartment the following evening with a large cardboard box and a garment bag. He looked like a general preparing his troops for a completely insane battle. I let him in, my heart thumping a low, anxious drumbeat against my ribs. Okay, Operation Lily is a go, he announced. Dropping the box on my living room floor, I brought supplies. Supplies, I asked. Peering into the box, it was filled with things I'd only ever seen in the women's aisles of drugstores. Bottles, tubes, strange plastic contraptions. It felt like looking at alien artifacts. I felt a flush of heat creep up my neck. The whole thing was starting to feel terrifyingly real. First things first, Ethan said, pulling out a tube of hair removal cream. We gotta defuzz you. Lily can't have hairy legs. He directed me to the bathroom. The cream was cold and smelled vaguely of chemicals and flowers. As I slathered the thick, white paste over my legs and arms, it felt bizarre. I'd spent my whole life just existing in my body, never paying much attention to the hair on my limbs. Now, I was acutely aware of it, and of the process of removing it. Standing in the shower a few minutes later, I used the little plastic scraper to wipe it off. The sensation was surreal. Clumps of hair washed away. Revealing skin underneath that was pale and smooth. Shockingly smooth. After I dried off, I couldn't stop touching my own legs. They felt like a stranger's. It was the first crack in the foundation of me, the first sign that Liam was being systematically erased. Next came the underwear. Ethan handed me 2 items. His face a careful mask of neutrality. One was a padded bra, what he called a cutlet bra, and the other was a pair of silky, triangular panties. The fabric was so light it felt like holding a whisper. "You've got to be kidding me," I mumbled, my face burning. "It's part of the illusion, man. It creates the right shape under the dress. Just put them on." He left the room, and I stood there, holding the flimsy pieces of fabric. The embarrassment was so intense it felt like a physical weight. But I'd made a promise. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the panties. The silk was cool and soft against my skin, a sensation so foreign and intimate it made my pulse quicken. The bra was even stranger. I fumbled with the clasp at the back, eventually managing to hook it. The padding pushed against my chest, creating a small, artificial swell under my t-shirt. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. It was still me, but with a subtle, unnerving difference. There was the ghost of a feminine curve there that had never existed before. A voice in my head was screaming, "What are you doing?" But I couldn't look away from the reflection. It was like watching a magic trick, and I was both the magician and the person being sawed in half. When I came out, Ethan gave me a quick, professional nod, as if he were a stylist sizing up a client. "Okay, good. Now for the hard part." He had enlisted the help of his cousin, Sarah, a cosmetology student he swore to secrecy, with a sob story about a college theater project. She arrived with a massive case that clicked open to reveal a dizzying array of brushes, palettes, and bottles. She was bubbly and kind, treating the whole thing with a cheerful professionalism that somehow made it both less and more weird. "All right, Liam, have a seat," she said, pointing to a kitchen chair. "Let's turn you into Lily." The next hour was a symphony of strange sensations. The feel of a soft, damp sponge bouncing cool foundation across my face, covering up my stubble shadow and the tired lines around my eyes. The tickle of a fluffy brush dusting powder over my skin, making it feel impossibly smooth and matte. The slight, pulling sting of tweezers, shaping my eyebrows into a more defined arch. Sarah worked with intense concentration, her brow furrowed. "You have great eyes for this," she mused, leaning in close with an eyeliner pencil. "Good lid space." I held my breath as she drew a delicate, dark line along my upper lashes. It felt like she was tracing the outline of a new person directly onto my face. She brushed a shimmery eyeshadow onto my lids, curled my lashes with a terrifying metal clamp, and then carefully applied mascara. When she told me to open my eyes, the effect was startling. They looked bigger, deeper, and undeniably feminine. The person staring back at me from the small hand mirror she held up was a softer, prettier version of a stranger. She finished with a swipe of peachy pink lipstick that felt slick and smelled sweet. Every step of the process was another layer being painted on, hiding Liam, building Lily from the outside in. Each brushstroke was a whisper, changing me. Then came the dress. Ethan unzipped the garment bag to reveal a dress the color of lavender fields at dusk. It was simple, with a fitted bodice and a skirt that flared out gently to the knee. The fabric was a light, airy chiffon. "It's supposed to be something sweet and simple," Ethan explained. "Lily isn't flashy." I slipped it on in my bedroom. The zipper sliding up my back felt like a final seal. The chiffon whispered against my newly smooth legs. A constant, rustling reminder of the change. The dress cinched at my waist and flared at my hips in a way my male clothes never did. It defined a shape I didn't know my body had. It was an entirely new physical vocabulary. How I stood, how I moved. Everything felt different. The final piece of the puzzle was the wig. It was a beautiful, shoulder-length style in a warm chestnut brown, with soft waves. Sarah expertly fitted it onto my head, tucking away all my short hair and securing it with pins. The weight of it on my head was unexpected. A warm, heavy presence. Strands of it fell forward, tickling my cheek. It framed the face that Sarah had painted, completing the illusion. "Okay," she said. "Her work done. The last thing, shoes." Ethan produced a pair of simple, round-toed ballet flats in a matching lavender. I slid my feet into them. They felt delicate, unsubstantial compared to my usual sneakers. "All right," Ethan said, his voice quiet with anticipation. "Time for the big reveal. There's a full-length mirror in my bedroom." I walked out of the kitchen and down the short hall to his room. My steps felt tentative, uncertain. The rustle of the dress, the slight weight of the wig, the feel of the makeup on my face, it was a total sensory overload. I was so focused on the individual details that I hadn't yet put them all together. I stopped in front of the mirror, and I froze. The person looking back at me wasn't Liam in a dress. It wasn't a man playing a part. The reflection in the mirror was, for all intents and purposes, a girl, a pretty one, at that. Her eyes, which were my eyes, looked wide and luminous, framed by dark lashes. Her skin was flawless. Her lips had a soft, rosy tint. The brown hair tumbled around a face that was somehow both mine and not mine at all. The dress gave her a delicate, slender figure. A tidal wave of emotions crashed over me. There was shock, of course, a deep, profound disbelief that the person in the mirror was me. There was fear, a cold, sharp spike of it. This was too real, but underneath it all, there was something else, a strange, thrumming current of fascination, of excitement. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel like the boring, invisible Liam. The person in the mirror was someone people would notice, someone they would want to talk to. I slowly raised a hand, my fingers trembling slightly, and touched my cheek. The girl in the mirror did the same. The skin felt softer than my own. Thanks to the makeup, it was a complete and total disconnect from reality. I was looking at a stranger who was wearing my body like a costume. And yet, there was a flicker of recognition deep in her eyes. A part of me that looked at this creation and didn't feel repulsed. A part of me that was utterly, terrifyingly captivated. Liam Ethan's voice came from the doorway, soft and hesitant. "What do you think?" I couldn't answer. I just stared at the reflection, at the girl named Lily, and for the first time, I wondered if this was just a role I was playing, or if it was someone who had been waiting inside me all along. The car ride to Ethan's parents' house was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching my small purse, another prop from Ethan's, so tightly my knuckles were white. Every time we hit a bump, the chiffon of the dress would brush against my legs, sending a jolt of surreal awareness through me. I was hyper-conscious of everything the way I was sitting, trying to keep my knees together like I'd seen women do. The light, floral scent of the perfume Sarah had spritzed on my wrists, the tickle of a stray strand of wig hair against my cheek. "You okay?" Ethan asked, glancing over at me. "You're really quiet." "I'm supposed to be shy, remember," I managed to say. I had practiced pitching my voice slightly higher, making it softer. The sound that came out felt thin and fake in my own ears. I sounded like a nervous teenager. "Just stick close to me," he said, reaching over and giving my hand a squeeze. His touch was meant to be reassuring, but it sent a weird jolt through me. It was the kind of casual, intimate gesture a guy makes with his girlfriend. It was part of the act, but it felt strangely potent. Pulling into the driveway was like arriving at my own execution. The house was blazing with lights, and I could see silhouettes moving through the windows. My stomach twisted into a painful knot. This was it. No turning back. "Ready?" Lily Ethan asked, giving me a small, encouraging smile. I took a shaky breath and nodded. Ready as I'll ever be. The moment we stepped through the front door, we were swarmed. A chorus of welcoming voices erupted. And suddenly I was the center of a swirling vortex of Ethan's relatives. "Ethan, you made it. And this must be Lily." A woman with a kind face, his mom, I presumed, exclaimed. She pulled me into a gentle hug that smelled like cinnamon and hairspray. "It is so wonderful to finally meet you. Dear, we've heard so much about you." It's nice to meet you too," I murmured, my voice barely a whisper. Ethan kept his arm securely around my waist, a solid, grounding presence. He handled the introductions, steering me from person to person. "Aunt Carol, Uncle Mike. This is Lily, Lily, my cousins, Mark and David. Everyone was so warm, so genuinely happy to meet me. They complimented my dress, they told me I had beautiful eyes. An aunt remarked on how delicate my hands were. No one looked at me with suspicion. They looked at me with open, uncritical acceptance. They saw a girl named Lily, Ethan's sweet, shy girlfriend, and they welcomed her without a second thought. It was profoundly disorienting. As Liam, I was used to being overlooked in a crowd. People would shake my hand, maybe ask what I did for a living, and then their eyes would glaze over. I was forgettable. But as Lily, I was an event. I was the subject of gentle scrutiny, of warm smiles and affectionate touches on the arm. The way men and women interacted with me was completely different. The men were more polite, holding doors, stepping aside to let me pass. The women were more familiar, touching my arm, leaning in to speak to me conspiratorially. It was a whole new set of social rules, and I was learning them on the fly. The true test came when Ethan led me into the living room where his grandma Rose was sitting in a comfortable armchair, like a queen holding court. She was small and frail, a delicate bird of a woman, but her eyes were bright and sharp. When she saw us, a huge radiant smile spread across her wrinkled face. "There's my handsome boy," she said, her voice thin but full of love. "And you? You must be Lily." Ethan led me forward, and I knelt down beside her chair so we were at eye level. "Grandma Rose, it's an honor to meet you. Happy birthday." She took my hand in both of her own. Her skin was like paper, but her grip was surprisingly firm. She just looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching my face. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was sure she would see through it all. She would see the boyish jawline under the foundation, the Adam's apple I was trying to hide, the sheer terror in my eyes. But she didn't. She just smiled, a gentle, beatific smile. "Oh, you're just as lovely as Ethan said. Such a kind face." She patted my hand. "He worries me. You know, always working so hard, so serious. But when he talks about you, his whole face lights up. I'm so glad he has you to bring him some joy." A lump formed in my throat. This sweet old woman's happiness was pinned on a complete fabrication, a lie I was embodying from head to toe. The guilt was a sharp, stabbing pain, but at the same time, seeing the genuine happiness in her eyes, I felt a strange sense of purpose. I was doing this for her. She held onto my hand and started telling me stories about Ethan as a little boy, how he used to run around with a cape made from a dish towel, how he was terrified of thunderstorms. I found myself smiling, a real, genuine smile. I wasn't trying to force it, I was just listening, present in the moment, feeling the warmth of her hand on mine. This wasn't the kind of interaction I ever had as Liam. No one ever held my hand and confided in me. This gentle intimacy was reserved for Lily. Throughout the party, I kept reminding myself I am Liam. This is just a costume. This is an act. But the longer I wore the dress, the longer I responded to the name Lily. The smaller and more distant that voice became. When Ethan would look at me from across the room, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and something else admiration. Maybe a confusing flutter would go through my chest. Was he looking at his best friend who was doing him a massive favor? Or was he looking at the girl everyone else saw? Later, as they were cutting the cake, Ethan leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. "You're doing amazing," he whispered. "They love you." "I'm terrified," I whispered back. "You'd never know it," he said, squeezing my waist gently. "You're a natural." A natural. The words echoed in my head. Nothing about my life as Liam had ever felt natural. I always felt awkward, like I was wearing clothes that were a size too small, forcing myself into a shape that wasn't quite right. But here, in this ridiculous disguise, surrounded by strangers, something felt easier. The pressure was off. I wasn't expected to be witty or successful or masculine. I was just expected to be sweet, to be present. And that, I was discovering, was a role I could play with surprising ease. The evening wasn't about me, Liam. It was about her, Lily, and for the first time, I was starting to understand that maybe she wasn't just a character. Maybe she was a part of me I had never known existed. The drive back to my apartment was silent. a stark contrast to the buzz of the party. The adrenaline of the evening was wearing off, leaving a strange, hollow feeling in its place. Ethan pulled up to the curb, killed the engine, and turned to me. The dim glow of the streetlights cast long shadows inside the car. "I don't know how to thank you, Liam," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved me tonight. You made my grandma so happy. You were perfect." "It was something," I said, not knowing what else to say. He handed me a thick envelope. "Your rent for the next 6 months, as promised." I took it, the weight of the cash feeling heavy and final. The transaction was complete. My part was done. "I'll get the dress back to you tomorrow," I said, my voice coming out in my normal register. It sounded rough and alien after hours of trying to keep it soft. "No, keep it," he said quickly. "Consider it a souvenir of the weirdest night of our lives." He gave me a tired smile, and I got out of the car. I watched him drive away, the red taillights disappearing around the corner, leaving me alone on the quiet street. Inside my apartment, the silence was deafening. The place felt drab and unfamiliar. My reflection in the dark living room window was that of a girl in a lavender dress, looking lost. The logical thing to do was to strip everything off immediately, to shower away the makeup, the perfume, to tear off the dress and the wig and become Liam again, to put this bizarre night behind me forever. But I couldn't. I walked into my bedroom and stood in front of the cheap, full-length mirror attached to my closet door. I just stared. Lily stared back. The makeup was still flawless, the hair only slightly mussed. I looked at the gentle curve of the padded bra under the dress, the soft flare of the skirt around my knees. Slowly, methodically, I began to deconstruct her. I kicked off the flats. I reached behind me and unzipped the dress, letting it pool at my feet in a soft pile of lavender chiffon. I unclasped the bra and peeled off the silky panties. Then I went into the bathroom and began removing the makeup with handfuls of soap and water. The eyeliner and mascara were stubborn, leaving gray smudges under my eyes. Finally, I pulled off the wig, my own short, matted hair springing free. I was Liam again, staring at my reflection. I expected to feel relief, a return to normalcy. Instead, a profound sense of loss washed over me. The person in the mirror looked pale and plain. The angles of my face seemed harsh, my eyes small. The smooth skin of my legs felt alien against the rough denim of the jeans I pulled on. The familiar cotton of my t-shirt felt coarse and restrictive. It was like the world had gone from color to black and white. The scent of Lily's perfume lingered on my skin, a ghost of the girl who had existed for just a few hours. The feeling of being her, the way people looked at her, the way she moved, the quiet confidence she possessed, it had been intoxicating. And now it was gone. I felt more like Liam than ever, and for the first time, I realized I didn't like being him very much. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't shake her. Lily became a persistent echo in my mind. I'd be at my mind-numbing job, staring at spreadsheets, and I'd suddenly remember the feeling of Grandma Rose's hand in mine. I'd be walking down the street and see a woman in a pretty dress and feel a strange pang of something, envy, longing. The money from Ethan sat in my drawer, a constant reminder. It had solved my financial problems, but it had created a whole new kind of internal crisis. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself typing crossdressing into my computer's search bar. I felt a hot flush of shame as I did it, looking over my shoulder even though I was completely alone. I clicked through forums and blogs, reading stories from people all over the world, men who felt more themselves in women's clothes, people who lived double lives, people who eventually transitioned to live as women full-time. I saw my own confusion and fascination reflected in their words. I wasn't some lone freak. There were others. The pull was too strong to resist. A few days later, I took out the lavender dress. My hands trembled as I slipped it on again. This time, there was no Ethan, no Sarah. It was just me. I went to the drugstore and, my heart pounding with fear and shame, bought a cheap makeup kit. My first attempt at applying it was a disaster. The eyeliner was crooked, the lipstick smeared, but even with the clumsy application, when I put on the wig, I could see a glimmer of her again. It wasn't for Ethan or his grandma this time. It was just for me, and in the quiet of my apartment, dressed as Lily. A sense of peace settled over me that I hadn't felt in years. The constant, low-level anxiety. That was the soundtrack to my life as Liam just faded away. With the money Ethan had given me, I had freedom. I didn't just pay my rent. I started to secretly build a new wardrobe. I ordered things online. My packages arriving in plain brown boxes. A simple A-line skirt, a soft cashmere sweater, a pair of leggings, and a tunic. Another, more realistic wig. Each new item felt like a piece of a puzzle I was slowly solving, each time I wore them. Lily felt less like a character and more like an identity. The clothes weren't just a costume, they were a confirmation. They felt right in a way my male clothes never had. They allowed me to express a softness, a gentleness, that I always had to keep hidden as Liam. One Saturday, I spent the entire day as Lily. I put on a simple floral sundress and did chores around my apartment. It felt so normal, so domestic, for the first time. My dreary little apartment felt like a home. It felt like her home. As the sun set, I realized with a jolt that I hadn't thought about being Liam all day. And the thought of changing back, of packing Lily away in the closet, felt like a punishment. It felt like putting myself back into a cage. Several months passed. My life fell into a strange, secret rhythm. By day, I was Liam, the quiet guy at the office, invisible and unremarkable, but at night and on weekends, in the privacy of my own home, I was Lily. I got better at makeup, learning from online tutorials. I practiced walking in low heels. I even started speaking aloud, trying to find Lily's voice, a softer, more melodic version of my own. My apartment slowly began to change, too. Throw pillows appeared on the couch, scented candles on the coffee table. Lily was no longer just a person I became. She was an influence, bleeding into every corner of my life. Then, inevitably, Ethan called again. "Hey, man," he started, his voice a little hesitant. "So, another family thing is coming up. My cousin's getting married." My heart did a little flip. "Oh yeah, that's great." "Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Everyone keeps asking about Lily. Especially Grandma. She talks about her all the time. Asks when she's going to see her again. She's so convinced Lily is this wonderful, calming influence on me." He sighed. "I know what I asked of you last time was huge, but would you consider doing it one more time for the wedding?" This time, there was no hesitation, no shock, just a quiet, electric thrill. "Yes," I said, "maybe a little too quickly. I'll do it." There was a pause on his end, really just like that. "You need my help, right? I'm your friend." It was the perfect excuse. This time, I was the one in control of the preparations. "I'm not wearing that same lavender dress to a wedding," I told him. "I'll get something myself." The next day, I did something I had only dreamed of, something that terrified and excited me in equal measure. I went shopping, as Lily. I spent hours getting ready, my hands shaking as I applied my makeup with surgical precision. I chose a simple, elegant outfit for the shopping trip itself, a dark skirt, a cream-colored blouse, and the comfortable flats, looking in the mirror before I left. I saw a nervous but determined woman staring back at me. Walking out of my apartment building and into the bright afternoon sun was one of the scariest moments of my life. Every person who passed me on the street felt like a judge and jury. I was sure they could see through the facade. But no one did. No one gave me a second look. I was just another woman heading to the mall. The anonymity was exhilarating. In the department store, I felt a sense of belonging I had never experienced before. I browsed through racks of dresses, the fabric soft and colorful under my fingertips. A saleswoman with a warm smile approached me. "Can I help you find anything, honey?" "I'm looking for a dress for a wedding," I said, my voice coming out steadier than I expected. She helped me pick out a few options. In the dressing room, I tried on a gown of shimmering seafoam green silk that seemed to catch the light. It was an off-the-shoulder style, elegant and sophisticated. When I zipped it up, it fit like it was made for me. The color brought out the green flecks in my eyes. I looked beautiful, genuinely beautiful. I bought it without a second thought. The night of the wedding, when Ethan picked me up, his jaw literally dropped. He just stared at me for a full 10 seconds. "Wow," He finally breathed out. Lily, you look stunning, absolutely stunning. The compliment landed differently this time. It wasn't for the character, it felt like it was for me. I felt a blush rise in my cheeks, a real, uncontrollable blush, and I was glad for the makeup that covered it. At the wedding, Lily was a different person from the shy girl at the birthday party, bolstered by months of private practice and the confidence of my new dress. I was more outgoing, I chatted easily with his relatives, remembering their names from the party, asking about their lives. I felt graceful, poised. Grandma Rose was overjoyed to see me. She held my hands and told me I looked like a movie star. She reached into her purse and pulled out a delicate, thin silver bracelet. "I wanted to give this to you," she said, fastening it around my wrist. "A little something to welcome you to the family properly. You bring life to my grandson. You make him happy." The cool metal against my skin felt like a benediction, a symbol of an acceptance I'd never felt as myself. Later in the evening, the lights dimmed, and the band started playing a slow song. Ethan turned to me. "May I have this dance?" he asked, a formal little bow in his voice. My heart leaped, of course. He led me onto the dance floor and pulled me close. One of his hands rested gently on the small of my back. The other held my hand. I placed my free hand on his shoulder, the fabric of his suit jacket smooth under my palm. The distance between us was gone. I could feel the warmth of his body, smell the familiar, clean scent of his cologne. We swayed to the music, not speaking for a long time. It was different from any other physical contact we'd ever had. This wasn't the roughhousing of boys or the casual bro hug of friends. This was intimate. It was the way a man holds a woman. "You know," he whispered, his voice low and close to my ear, "it's weird. Sometimes tonight, I forget it's you." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" I whispered back, my voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what it is," he said, and he pulled me a fraction of an inch closer. You seem so happy like this, lighter. I've never seen you look so at peace." My head felt light. I rested it gently on his shoulder, a gesture that felt completely natural, completely right. In that moment, under the dim lights, wrapped in his arms, the last vestiges of Liam the actor fell away. There was no act, there was no performance, there was just me, and the person I was felt more real than anyone I had ever been before. I wasn't a man in a dress pretending to be a woman. I was Lily, and being held by my best friend like this sparked a confusing, terrifying, and wonderful feeling deep inside me. It was a feeling of being seen, of being desired, of being exactly where I was supposed to be, and I knew, with a certainty that shook me to my core, that I could never go back. Lily was real. After the wedding, back at my apartment, the beautiful green dress felt like a second skin. The silver bracelet from Grandma Rose was a cool, solid weight on my wrist. Ethan came in with me, ostensibly to rehash the night, but we were both quiet. The energy between us charged and different. The intimacy of the dance floor had followed us home. Instead of changing right away, I made us tea, my movements in the kitchen feeling fluid and practiced in the skirt. We sat on the couch, the steam from the mugs rising between us. I knew I couldn't keep this up. I couldn't live this fractured existence anymore. The secret was becoming too heavy to carry. I took a deep breath, my hands wrapped around the warm mug. "Ethan," I began, my voice quiet but clear. "We need to talk about Lily." He looked at me, his expression cautious. "What about her?" She's not just a role I play for your family anymore." The words tumbled out, shaky but unstoppable. "When I'm her, when I'm wearing these clothes and people call me Lily, I feel more like myself than I ever have as Liam. It's like, my whole life, I've been playing a part, and Liam was the costume. This." I gestured to myself, to the dress, the makeup, the person I had become. "This is the first time I don't feel like I'm faking it." My heart was pounding so hard, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I was terrified. I was laying my entire fragile new self at the feet of the most important person in my life, fully expecting him to be confused, or even disgusted. To lose his friendship would be like losing a limb. Ethan was silent for a long time. He just looked at me, his gaze traveling from my made-up eyes to the bracelet on my wrist. I could see a dozen emotions warring on his face: confusion, surprise, dawning understanding. I braced myself for the rejection. But then he smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small, gentle curve of his lips. "I know," he said softly. I blinked, stunned. You know." "I think I've known for a while," he said, leaning forward. "I saw it at my grandma's party, the way you just lit up. But tonight, at the wedding..." Liam would never have that kind of confidence. He'd be in a corner, trying to be invisible. But Lily? She was laughing, talking to everyone. She was happy. Liam never looks happy. "Man, not really." He reached out and gently touched the silver bracelet on my wrist. "My friend deserves to be happy. And if this," he gestured to all of me, "is what makes you happy, then how could I not be okay with it?" The relief that flooded through me was so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. Hot tears streamed down my face, carving clean paths through my foundation. I didn't even try to stop them. All the fear, the secrecy, the loneliness of the past few months just poured out of me. Ethan just sat there, patient and kind, and handed me a tissue. His acceptance was the permission I didn't know I was so desperate for. It was the key that unlocked the last door. With Ethan's support, I took the next step. It was no longer just about clothes and makeup. It was about who I was, fundamentally. He helped me find a therapist who specialized in gender identity issues. In my first session, sitting across from a kind-faced woman, I told my story. She listened patiently, and then she gave my feelings a name: gender dysphoria. She explained that the discomfort and anxiety I'd felt my whole life as Liam was a common experience for people whose gender identity didn't align with the sex they were assigned at birth. Hearing it described in clinical, calm terms was a revelation. I wasn't a freak. I wasn't crazy. My experience was real, and it was valid. The journey began in earnest. I started letting my hair grow out. My wardrobe transformation became permanent. I slowly packed away all of Liam's clothes, the baggy jeans, the drab t-shirts, the clunky boots, and donated them. My closet slowly filled with dresses, skirts, soft sweaters, and blouses. My apartment completed its transformation from a bachelor pad to a soft, comfortable, feminine space. I started living as Lily full-time, first just in the evenings, then on weekends, and finally, I took the terrifying leap of going to my HR department at work. It was a nerve-wracking conversation, but they were surprisingly supportive. The following Monday, I walked into the office as Lily. There were stares, of course, whispers, but there was also support from unexpected corners, and for the first time, I didn't feel like hiding. I felt proud. The process wasn't easy. There were hard days, moments of doubt and fear. Learning to navigate the world as a woman came with its own set of challenges, but for every difficult moment, there were 100 moments of pure, unadulterated joy. The simple pleasure of my long hair brushing against my shoulders, the feeling of a skirt swirling around my legs on a breezy day, the camaraderie I found with other women, the profound peace that came from looking in the mirror and finally seeing the real me staring back. Lily was no longer a secret. She was just me. 6 months later, I was invited to another of Ethan's family gatherings, a summer barbecue this time. There was no frantic preparation, no secret transformation. I just got ready, the way I did every day. I chose a simple white sundress and sandals. My own hair, now long enough to fall past my shoulders, was tied back in a loose ponytail. I applied a touch of makeup, not as a mask, but as an enhancement, a way to express myself. As I fastened the thin silver bracelet from Grandma Rose around my wrist, I smiled at my reflection. There was no trace of the scared, confused boy I used to be. The woman looking back at me was calm, confident, and content. When Ethan picked me up, he just grinned. "Ready to go, Lily?" "Absolutely," I said. The reception at the barbecue was easy. There was a brief moment of surprise from some of the extended family who hadn't known about my transition, but Ethan had clearly done the groundwork. He introduced me simply. "Everyone, this is Lily. No explanations, no apologies. Just a statement of fact." And his family, led by the shining example of Grandma Rose, followed his lead. She gave me the biggest hug, her eyes twinkling. "There's my girl," she said. "You look happier every time I see you." The day was filled with sunshine and laughter. I helped Ethan's mom in the kitchen. I played with his little cousins on the lawn. I sat and talked with his aunts. I wasn't performing. I was just living, participating, being a part of the family. I was just Lily. The story ends here. But my life was just beginning. It ends with me, Lily, walking down the street on a bright spring morning a year after that first terrifying phone call. The sun is warm on my skin. The light fabric of my dress blows gently in the breeze. The silver bracelet on my wrist. A gift given to a fiction who turned out to be my truth. Glints in the sunlight. I take a deep, cleansing breath, filling my lungs with the sweet air. There is no more hiding. There is no more fear. The constant, grinding anxiety that defined Liam's life has been replaced by a quiet, steady peace. I am not playing a role. I am not wearing a costume. For the first time in my entire life, I am simply, completely, and unapologetically myself. My name is Lily, and a new chapter of my life is just starting to bloom.